Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cougar Dash. I am Ryan Root. I am followed by my co-host Cody Schoeler, and we are going to be talking a little bit more about WSU basketball. This last week was did not go as planned. We'll just say that, but we'll ignore the USC loss for right now because we got to talk about probably the worst loss for the Cougs this season, and that's going 1-1 against UW this season for they're 3-30. I don't know what the record is. What went wrong here, Cody?
Well, first, let's get a bit of positivity in here. They did upset UCLA to start off this past week, so that's good. We talked about it here. You said they had a bit of a chance. I wasn't as confident as you, but you were right on that one. So they started it off well, and they ended it poorly. Obviously, that loss to UW. A loss to UW always sucks, but a loss to UW when they're the worst team in the conference, and I think had 2 wins before that, is even worse. And, what went wrong? Obviously, Bonton being out is huge, and we knew it was going to impact them on offense. He's their primary ball handler, scorer, distributor. We knew there was going to be some issues on offense, but where I was really surprised, and I don't think the reason was that Bonton was out, is the defensive end was just really bad. They shouldn't have allowed UW to get just as many points, as many shots as they did. And really, from me watching the game, what I just was baffled by was the fact that Kyle Smith kept using the zone defense. We've seen him go to it at basically every game at some point, and sometimes it just doesn't seem like it works. Especially when a team that can shoot is just shooting well, it's kind of a bad decision. I mean, they got torched by UCLA for 91 points earlier in the season out of that zone, and UW's not a good offensive team. The only thing they're capable of doing is hitting open shots, and by running zone, you give them the opportunity to do that. I don't think anybody on that team could have beat anybody one-on-one. Noah Williams is one of the best ball stoppers in the conference, and you've got a guy going off for 29 points. Noah Williams should be plastered on him the whole game. And so I just don't understand, because it seemed like they were just getting their shots. They were getting guys open in the corner, because you have FA, who is a paint protector, trying to play defense on the wing. I didn't like that, and I just thought the defense is what let them down. Obviously, we knew the offense was going to struggle, but that was something they could have overcome against this bad UW team. But the defense, I think, just dropped the ball.
I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me was Noah Williams did not bring his A game for this. I mean, he shot 2 for 14 from the field. I mean, if it wasn't for 1,000,001 free throws he made, he would not have had a double-digit scoring performance. I'll give him credit where it's due. He got 7 boards and 7 assists to go with his stats there. But you're playing against your rivalry. Like, this is, you take this rivalry seriously, just like Bonton playing any Oregon team, he takes it seriously. Noah Williams, when you play the Huskies, you take this rivalry seriously. And I've never played a day of D1 basketball in my life, and I can only imagine what it's like to actually be out there on that court playing. But you gotta try. I don't want to say you gotta try harder. You gotta perform more. You gotta perform better on the offensive side of things, and like you said, defense. I mean, Bonton. I know Jazz Coons said in the post game presser that sure they missed Bonton scoring. They missed his defense too. He's one of the best defenders on this team, one of the best perimeter defenders, that is. And Noah Williams is right there with him as probably the best perimeter defender, and not only on the team, but one of the best in the conference, like you said. And he didn't really bring it there either. I mean, Sahonis and Stevenson combined for over 45 points, 46 points, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I give credit for Sahonis not only having a great performance, but hitting that last shot with no timeout to prepare, just 10 seconds to go on the clock, hits the layup with 2 seconds left. I give him credit for that, but we got to at least talk about the last play a little bit. I don't see this as a huge, mess up on the Cougs' part. I just see this as, tensions were high. All the pressure was on that one moment. Noah Williams, I was just bagging on him, but made that game-tying layup to, tie the game up with 10 seconds left. But it fell apart there with the final seconds with Sahonis making the final layup. So I mean, you could tell on the sideline of that game, the entire or court side of that game, everyone on WSU's part, just everyone went down morally, and they were all frustrated. But how do you think this WSU team can overcome getting a loss, let alone against their rival, but getting a loss with 2 seconds left on the clock? It's the first time that's happened this year.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is heartbreaking. And, I mean, Sahonis went right at Noah Williams and he won that matchup, which is something that just can't happen when you're supposed to be one of the best perimeter defenders, in the conference. And so obviously, whenever they're able to get Bonton back, that's huge. That changes the dynamic of the entire team. And I mean, this was a big moment for this team. If you looked at who was out there, I mean, we know what Bonton does in terms of statistics, offense and defense, but he's also the only veteran guy playing on this team. I mean, everybody else, I mean, you had Jazz play a little bit, but he's a junior, but he hasn't played all that much. I mean, Bonton is such a huge presence just from a leadership standpoint. So this was really, I mean, this was the team that we're going to see going forward. I obviously don't know what Bonton's plans are, but I mean, this was the future team, and we've seen that, and they have to just bounce back from that. Obviously Noah Williams is going to have to step up when it's his time, and that may come sooner. I mean, other guys just need to perform better. We saw Jazz step up, and we saw some guys do that. Deshaun obviously playing injured, but he was coming off his best game against USC in that loss. We've seen guys step up, but nobody has made that leap to a Bonton like player. And without that type of player, it's hard to win basketball games. I mean, obviously UW is in the same boat. That's why that game was so close. They were out their best player, and they're not that talented. But this is a team that isn't going to have Bonton for forever. I mean, obviously, I don't know what is happening with NCAA, everything this year. Maybe guys can come back. Maybe Bonton comes back, but he could leave, and we could be looking at a team that is without a star, superstar. So I think that's the biggest thing of this was a young and inexperienced team, and I think that showed as well too. There's just we've known that there's a lot of steps that this team has to make. But I think this further proved that, because without, a glue guy like Bonton, who has been playing out of his mind lately, we've seen the struggles that this team can have. So, getting him back is really the only thing I think that can save this team in the short term.
And I just want to say about Bonton's status for next year. I know Smith was asked about it in his weekly presser yesterday. If you ask me for my prediction right on the spot, I'll say Bonton stays another year. I think it's just the best interest for not only him, but also the team going forward. I mean, it definitely still raises the questions for this season. If Ellaby had stuck around, where would we be at this point? Would we be a top half team? Would we be right where we are? Luckily, he's out there in Portland killing it with Dame Dalla and Melo. But no, I think Bonton stays another year. I mean, it's just for everyone's going to be a COVID senior, or what, it's a redshirt COVID freshman or a redshirt COVID sophomore, or, we'll have a new word in front of redshirt, I think. But Bonton's injury definitely affects WSU a great deal. I mean, we saw it against UW, unfortunately, and it happened in the final seconds of the USC game. But whenever Bonton's not in WSU, you definitely see. But like I said, he's one of the only veterans on the team outside of Kuntz and maybe Tony Miller, who barely plays any minutes this season, as he's still battling, I believe, a hip injury or some sorts. But Bonton's one of the few veterans on this team, and when he's out, the young Cougars go out there and they try to piece something together. So what are the weaknesses that this team has when Bonton's out, and how do teams take advantage of this?
Yeah, I mean, without Bonton, I mean, they're a bottom 3 team probably in terms of talent, along with Cal and UW. I think. I mean, they just don't have anybody that has stepped up to his level. But I think the main thing we've seen is just ball handling. Obviously, Ryan Rapp has been praised all year for his kind of ball handling and his ability to perform in the offense. But we've seen when he gets that larger role, he's not looked as good. He's had some pretty bad turnovers, even at the end of that UCLA game, when the ball handling and turnovers just fell apart. So I think that's the main thing. Obviously, Noah Williams did a good job of stepping in and getting those, just like you mentioned, and being that guy. But I mean, the way that Bonton is able to attack and either get a shot or pass to somebody is unmatched for this team. And outside of him, there's not. I mean, we've seen Noah Williams get it with his pull up a little bit, but when that's not hitting, there's not a guy who can create his own shot. I mean, it's passing around, either getting it to the post or hoping to get an open three. Kuntz can drive a little bit and some guys can drive, but the offense is just, I mean, it's, you take away a team's best player and they don't look good. I mean, I think we expected that, but, it's just whatever potential this team has, to upset a UCLA or whoever. I mean, it's gone without Bonton. They just look like a team that doesn't really know what they're doing, kind of on both ends. But I think that just playmaking and the offense just looks so much just worse and not as fluid without a guy like him.
Well, I agree in a sense that Bonton's shot creating ability is, I mean, that you got to have a shot creator on any successful basketball team, high school, college, NBA. Mm-hmm. You got to have a shot creator on the team to be that last resort if the entire offense isn't working out. And Bonton is definitely that. Like you said, with Noah kind of getting it together, and Yakumovsky, who I think has the potential of being that guy, I mean, has been very spotty throughout the entire year. But I want to tie it back to Ryan Rapp a little bit, because I do like the way that he provides for the Cougs offense, and his defense is, pretty average, subpar. But his playmaking ability mixed with his scoring ability as of late, towards the beginning of the year where he went, 0 and however many shots and didn't score a point for a few games there. But as of late, I mean, he had a career night against UCLA. I think he had 15 points. He led the team in scoring for the first time in his career. And I want to say that was added on with, I want to say 7 or 8 assists, something like that. But
the 15 points were against Oregon State, but UCLA, he had 5 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. So probably all around better game. Yeah, I just pulled it up. I did not have that committed to memory.
No, I knew he had a 15-point outing against.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the UCLA game, I mean, he almost had a double-double in assists and rebounds. What guard does that? He provides in ways that I don't think the average fan would deem as, sexy or whatnot, but he can provide something off the bench at least. After that, it's basically barren at the guard position. I mean, we've seen a little bit of Miles Fitzgerald-Warren go out there. I mean, he played, I want to say 5 or so minutes in this last game against UW, and they're definitely barren in that backcourt. Like Smith said yesterday in his presser, with Jefferson Coulibaly would be someone that could, be thrown into the rotation there a little bit. He's not playing, obviously, with the season-ending injury. So, yeah, when Bonton's out, the guard position is kind of stranded. It's Noah Williams or bust, or maybe Ryan Rapp on a good night. Ryan Rapp's not as consistent as a Bonton or a Williams, but it's kind of Williams or bust at that guard spot. A lot of pressure, though, gets put on the bigs down low, Abogidi and Jackson. A lot of pressure gets put down there. And with Vovo Markovetsky having very poor hand-eye coordination and mainly is there for a big body down low on defense, Jackson and Abogidi will play a ton of minutes. I mean, there's going to be, throughout the entire game, it's going to be one or the other or both in at the same time. And it's going to put a lot of pressure at those bigs. They're both freshmen, and I think teams can kind of take advantage of that. I mean, Jackson can score against Evan Mobley with ease. It seems that last Saturday. Props to Jackson for getting that big performance against Evan Mobley. That guy is absolutely insane. Seeing him play in person was a completely different feeling than watching on television. But Jackson obviously can score. Abogidi's been putting something together a little bit, but Abogidi's 3-point shooting ability has absolutely just gone out the window. I mean, he had an opportunity to tie the game up or take the lead or whatever late in the game against UW, and again, it was just another brick. I think he's missed like the last 20 attempts he's had. But what do you think about the pressure going on the bigs? I know that, this offense is very Bonton-centric, and Williams is that second guy, but Deshaun and Abogidi kind of get pushed up the totem pole when Bonton's out.
Yeah, and I think, especially Deshaun Jackson, because he's a guy that you can kind of create for in the offense. He's a guy you can get low post touches. Abu Gidi, they tried to do that, but his low post game still isn't there yet. He's best kind of as, like a cutter, or, find him open, get a putback, something like that. He doesn't have the greatest back to the basket game, which is hard because, what else can you do for a guy? But, personally, I think the next step for him is to develop a mid-range shot because
for Deshaun or FA?
For FA, because
Okay.
the spacing with those two both trying to be down low, I think can just get really complicated and confusing. I'd love to see, we've seen FA shoot threes and hit some threes, but, I can't remember him, hitting anything from the elbow. That's a great way to break a zone, or, just doing something like that. I think that's the next step for him because, obviously his rim running is insane. He'll dunk on somebody once a game. He's great at doing this, like under the basket, like just put his hand out and like toss the ball in, like these just, the dude's got, a pogo stick for legs. But, in terms of what he can do within the offense, he's limited right now. There's not much you can do. You can call a pick and roll and try to get him running to the hoop, but, but I love what Deshaun Jackson's doing. I think he's perfect for what. It's weird seeing, he's a traditional big in, especially college basketball where that's phasing out. We're seeing it still in the NBA, but, he's a big body that's going to operate in the post, set some screens, and really do nothing else. And that's fine when you have one of those. So, I like what Deshaun Jackson's doing, and I think, he's matured. We've kind of seen, not that FA's been doing bad, but FA started out so hot this season. And he was, everybody's favorite new guy. And he's, whether he's been figured out or whether he's just slumping, he's kind of been, he still gets his highlight plays, but he's not, doing the crazy things he was early in the year. Whereas Deshaun has been on an upward trajectory and has really been getting better and better over the course of the season. And we don't know, maybe he was even injured in these last couple of games, because we spent last week talking about how they were going to replace him, and I'm glad they didn't have to, because they would not have been able to. We kind of talked about this last week, but at this point you're not replacing a guy like that. But I think the main thing is they both showed that they can handle it. They are both freshmen, and sure, they have freshman moments, but they've played, much better than you would expect some, a true freshman in such a weird year, with what they've had to deal with.
Yeah, I absolutely love how Deshaun has progressed throughout the season. Especially in this past month or 2 month stretch, he's definitely becoming that third option. And with Bonton out, it's only natural for him to go up to number 2. And that new number 3, if Bonton does not play this weekend, that new number 3 honestly could either be Rodman or Kuntz. They both have been playing out of their minds off the bench. I believe
like
Rodman was Kuntz starting, but he must have had the past 3 games. I want to say he's had like these fancy like Euro step pump fake finishes that watching those live and seeing the bench's reaction that the TV doesn't get. They absolutely lose their minds when he does one of those Euro step finishes down low. He's had one like these past 3 games. It's very, very interesting to watch. But Kuntz or Rodman would be the next people to step up on offense, I think. Rapp just, isn't quite there yet. And Rodman just has this very laid back 3-point shot that just falls, that I just love watching every time. The fact that he jumps like an inch off the ground and he'll just sink it. Those are going to be the next guys up. And I believe it was Noah Williams who said it earlier in the year. It's like, it's a next guy up mentality. Like, we can be kind of, we can be kind of sad and down about Bonton not playing, but it's next guy up, and everyone's got to play their part, and everyone's got to play as a team. You can't get discouraged over one injury, right? Unless you're the Golden State Warriors. But anyway, we can have our third segment now, where we will talk about the Bay Area coming to the Palouse. We have Cal tonight at 7:30, I want to say, at Pac-12 Network. You can watch that there. And we have Stanford on Saturday. I don't have the time off the top of my head. I want to say that's like 5 o'clock or so. But we got Cal and Stanford this weekend. Beat Cal the first time. Got beat up by Stanford the first time. What are your initial thoughts on this matchup this week?
Well, my first thought is if we want this segment to be positive, let's focus on the Cal matchup. If we want the segment to be negative, let's focus on the Stanford matchup because I think that's just how it is. Stanford is going to beat this WSU team. I've said that about games that WSU has won, but Stanford has a formula, which is bigs that can score. Oscar De Silva is, him and Mobley are the two best bigs in the conference. We saw what De Silva did to WSU last time, and he seems to have just been kept it up, and if not getting better this whole time. So I'm not looking forward to that matchup as much, but we've seen this team pull an upset, maybe it happens. But that Cal matchup is intriguing because Cal's kind of in that same category as UW at the bottom of the standings, and on paper WSU should beat Cal, but they just lost to UW, meaning they could lose to anybody. But every time I think I know how this team is going to play, they do the opposite. When they look bad against Oregon State, they beat UCLA. When I think I have them figured out, they do the complete 180. Obviously, if they play like they did against UW, I don't see them beating Cal, especially with Matt Bradley back, who was a great scorer and didn't play in this last matchup, the last time they played. And if they play like they did against UCLA and Oregon, that was the best this team can possibly play, other than the last few minutes of that UCLA game. But they definitely have a chance to beat Cal, and I think they will beat Cal, even without Bonton, which I'm not saying he isn't playing. I'm saying even if he doesn't play, which I would expect he would be back. It didn't seem like he had too harsh of an injury. But even without him, I think they would have a chance to beat Cal, just because I don't think Cal's a good team. But then obviously Stanford, they need Bonton. Without Bonton, I don't think they have a shot. But that Cal game tonight, this will be the close, enjoyable game of the weekend. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that.
So I have a theory about Bonton this week. Tonight, playing Cal at 7:30, I'm going to throw it out there. I think Bonton plays because literally last week, when Deshaun Jackson was in the injury scare off of I think the same injury that Bonton has. It's just Bonton had a pair of rolled ankles and Deshaun had the one rolled ankle that honestly looked a lot worse than what it turned out to be. It looked like he had broken something. It didn't look that great, but we asked Smith at the presser on Tuesday last week, how's Deshaun? What's his status? And they're like, no update, kind of taking it one day at a time or whatnot. So keyword there is no update. We asked Coach Smith yesterday about Bonton. He goes, no update. He's going through rehab. I'm like, okay, no update. That means a couple things to me, because this kind of I recognize this sort of happens with Jeff Pollard last year. Jeff Pollard had a broken hand towards the end of the year, right before one of the last games of the season, whether it was the first round of the Pac-12, whatnot. That news didn't break out. So having that not break out means teams do not figure out, oh, they're not going to have Jeff Pollard. Oh, they're not going to have Deshaun Jackson. They're not going to have Bonton, right? It's kind of giving WSU an advantage saying that, oh, there's no update, no comment. It's not saying he isn't going to play. It's not saying he is going to play, but for the sake of my argument, I'm saying that means he is going to play. I don't think he'll play a ton of minutes, so to speak. And me saying that, maybe Kyle Smith will play him 38 minutes like he normally does, but let's just hope he doesn't play that many minutes tonight. I am throwing it out there, my prediction. It's not a for sure. Don't come at me if it doesn't turn out that way. But my prediction, off of just prior experience, I say Bonton plays today, and it's really going to be that Bradley matchup, like you said.
Yeah.
Smith said that he thinks Bradley is one of the best scorers in the country. I was like, okay, that's some pretty high praise for Bradley. He's good, but we'll see how it turns out. He's been on fire these past couple of games, but that's going to be obviously the biggest matchup. Bonton and Bradley, or Noah Williams and Bradley, or Bonton and Williams against Bradley. Who knows? It's a lot of it's going to be there. I I will say also another key player for that Stanford game, Zaire Williams is a huge threat for Stanford. He got the first triple-double in over a decade for Stanford. He's probably going to be a top 10 pick in next year's draft with Mobley, probably a top 5 pick for Mobley. But Zaire Williams is going to at least give FA some problems. There's another dude on the court that can jump 40 inches off the ground, right? So that's going to be a great big matchup. But
we saw it the last time these teams played. Zaire Williams took flight for a few seconds and absolutely, had a crazy inbound alley-oop. I mean, the dude is chock full of potential, and if he could break out and play any.
Him and Mobley the last game on Saturday, Mobley had a dunk where I could have sworn his elbow was above the rim. He's a 7-footer with as big of a vertical as he has, and his elbow was above the rim. I swear, I saw it with my own eyes. This is my own Bo Jackson story. If Evan Mobley becomes an MVP one day, this is my Bo Jackson story. But Zaire Williams is definitely going to give a ton of pressure to the WSU bigs down low. I think anytime that we play Williams or Mobley, there's going to be a highlight dunk. So watch out for that, Coug fans. I'm not saying watch for a loss to Stanford. I'm saying watch for a cool highlight to happen if it isn't too embarrassing. But we'll get our spirits up high for tonight because Cal, like you said, I see this as a win. With or without Bonton's kind of a tougher question. You're saying it's a win either way. I say without Bonton, this could be closer than we thought, if not an upset.
Absolutely. Yeah. Without him, it's close. I just think, I put WC without Bonton in the same group as Cal and UW, and I think that it would be a very similar game. And I think the difference is that Noah Williams probably doesn't have as bad of a game. As bad as
I bet you he's ticked. Yeah, I bet you he has a revenge game.
As bad as UW is, they are a stingy defensive team. When they are playing well, we've obviously seen them get destroyed. But I mean, the zone and they've got guys who can play defense. So I don't think Cal is a great defensive team. I don't think they're great at anything. So I think, because if Noah Williams has a typical game, then, WSU beats UW by 10 points. That's the difference. And going back to what you said about Bonton, if Bonton does play, he's playing full. It's the one thing we've seen from Kyle Smith is other than sitting Deshaun Jackson for 2 minutes in that UCLA game, when he has a guy playing, that's one of the, starters. Obviously, we've seen him hold back with Kuntz and with Tony Miller and some of those guys. But, when we saw Noah Williams get concussed on the court and we thought he was out, he played.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I thought he was gone for 2 months.
Yeah, and he played his normal stuff the next time. So the one thing we know is that if Kyle Smith has one of his guys, there is no minutes restriction. So if Bonton plays, he's playing Bonton-like minutes. I do think he probably will play, but and that will be obviously huge for this game. I think, if he plays, then they should be able to handle Cal, or at least maybe not, beat them by 15, but at least be in the driver's seat the whole game. The hardest part of that UW game is that UW was in control for 30 minutes, from the start until, they finally were able to come back. So I think we definitely don't see that. I think we see a competitive game throughout. But that Stanford game, I still don't think they have a shot with him, just because I think Stanford is playing really well and they have the formula to beat this team. But, they definitely need him back. But if you're only watching one game, watch tonight, because if you want to watch a win, if you want to watch a loss, then try watching the other game. But
if you want to watch, a loss / do you want to watch a future NBA star play? There you go.
Yeah. But I would not be. But I mean, they could upset Stanford. Stanford's not. I mean, nobody in the Pac-12 is some top 10 team in the country. So I'm not writing it in pen, but I'm getting ready to.
It'd be Kyle Smith's first ever win against Stanford in his career as a WSU coach. First career win for probably about 90% of the team too.
It's been a lot. It's been a nice trend of firsts lately. Most of them bad. So other than first win at Oregon, and first loss to Pacific Northwest team at Oregon State, then first loss to UW. So maybe we see a good first again. Maybe
it's quite the theory. I had my theory. You have yours. Okay, we agree on maybe 1-1 this weekend. Probably. 1-1.
Yeah, That would be safe.
That's all the time that we have for today on Cougar Dash. You can find our written content exclusively on sportspac12.com, and you can follow them on Twitter at sportspac12. You can find links to that written content on our website, dashsports.tv, and make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at dashsportstv. Lastly, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dash Sports, where you can find all of our shows and clips. Thank you for tuning in. You can catch us at the same time next week, 1 o'clock on Thursdays. If you're keeping up with tonight's game against Cal or even the Saturday game against Stanford, I'll be live tweeting during the game. You can catch up with